Y'all doing? All right. Um, so this is BUSI 3200. I'm not sure why you took this section. Um, maybe it's because you're a supply chain major. Maybe it's somebody told you this is the easiest of all the 3200s to take. Um, Maybe it's fit your schedule. I have no idea, but we have 160 students registered in this section. This classroom seats 215. And not this week, but every week after this, there's going to be students from other classes attending this class. So if you like to sit on the front row, I promise you, you will not have to fight for your seat. If you like to sit on the back row, you will be fighting for a seat. So this room's going to fill up every week. So I suspect there will probably be I'm I'm guessing maybe 200 people per week in here. So and this is a 215 room. So if you like where you're sitting right now and you want to sit there every week, well, then you better make sure you show up early. I'm told nobody is in here before this. Is that correct? That's what we think. So if you want to show up 30, 45 minutes in advance to get you a good seat, feel free to do that. If you want to show up now, like this, and walk in and have to walk through the aisle and ask people to move as you go through the aisles, then you can do that too, right? So you want to be late for church? You can be late for church and not sit in the back of church. You can go right to the front. All right. So let me explain to you a little bit about how this class is going to work, because it is a little different than any of the other 3200s that you could take, and maybe that's why you're in here. But every week, we bring in an executive from industry to talk to you. That's it. There's no fancy lectures of some kind to teach you anything about how you need to be a good student. This is about teaching you about how to be a good professional so that when you graduate, which I hope you all do, that you go out and get a job and you understand what the future might look like and get a glimpse at it. And so we're going to have people coming in here, and I say executives, it's going to be presidents of companies, it's going to be C-suite people, and sometimes they bring people with them. I know Len Baccia, who's the president of TechTrans, always loves to bring one of his up and comings uh, here. Usually it's an alum, bring them back, and they get to share their story too. So that's what's kind of cool is it's really just you come, you sit, enjoy the entertainment, and absorb the knowledge. Because believe me, you will get. Where's Jackson over here? He's been helping us out for this is your third semester, right? So whether he likes it or not, of course, you're being paid to sit there. He's sat through plenty of these, and I can tell you, I've sat through all of them. And there isn't a week that goes by that I don't go, wow, I learned something. And I say that, right? I'm always down there with my notes, taking notes. So it's a really cool thing for, I have to grade you. You know that, right? This is a class and I have to give you a grade. It's like a requirement. So for every given week, you have to go into Canvas, you find the lecture for that week, and you have to write a little 250 word summary answering two questions. What did I learn? And what do I wish I would have learned? Okay. And that's it. So it's pretty simple. There's nothing really complicated about this class. If you cheat in this class, you're cheating yourself, right? I'm not worried about if you cheat in here, I'm not worried about it because you failed yourself. You didn't fail me, you failed yourself, right? So if you want to cheat in this class, then you got harder problems in life going forward, right? Because if this is what you got to cheat on, right? Like this isn't organic chemistry. So if you got to cheat in this class, you have bigger problems in life. And I'm not worried about it because you're going to run into things that are going to straighten you out that aren't me. So it's pretty simple. There's there's more lectures than there are, uh, like if you're graded on 12, there's going to be 13 or something like that, right? Which means you get to drop one. So if there's a week you're like, hey, I can't make it to class, fine, don't come, don't do the assignment. I don't care, right? If you don't make it to class and you're like, I still want to get some points because every week is worth 5 points. 5 times 12 is 60, 60 total points in the class. So if you are like, oh, I missed that class, but I still want to get something, 1 week after the class, the lecture or this event is put up on YouTube. You can go, you can watch the lecture, do your write-up, and I'll give you 2 points, right? So you can still get points. So theoretically, I think it's something like you could miss you can do the math. I'm saying this, you're like, why would you say that? Because you can do math just as well as I can. But theoretically, I think you can come to 3 lectures, miss all the other ones, do the videos, and still get a C. That's pretty good, right? Or you can just come to them all and get an A really, really easy, I think. Is that okay with y'all? Like it really matters. Like you're going to go, no, it's not okay. I'm going to go, well, that's the way it is. Okay. So any questions? Because that's it. Not for the day, just for the class, understanding the class. Okay. One other thing I just want to point out though, because this might apply to some of you. If you are taking a supply chain management class, some of your professors are going to ask you to come to this to get credit in their class. And there's a new thing we're implementing this semester where you actually have to take a selfie of you in this room, and they have to answer a quiz. So there's a little exercise. So if I see some of you doing selfies, I'll understand why. And so if some of you are actually, well, you're all kind of registered in this class. So if you see some people next week in here that are taking selfies of them, like just ignore them. They are a little weird, and just ignore them and just keep going on. All you have to do is your write-up. Okay. Now, if you are taking this, if you're doing this for this class and a supply chain class, then yeah, you got to do the selfie and all that other kind of stuff too. So it's almost like you got to do 2 assignments, but is it really that hard? Is it really that hard? Okay. So I typically, I guess for probably the last couple of years, I start off with the first lecture just talking about networking. And I'm going to teach you something about networking that a lot of times you're not taught. And what that is not, oh, I got to build my network and I got to go network and build this. I talk about that, sure, but I also talk about what the relationship in a network means. And we call that, and I'm going to call that trust, and that's a currency, and we'll get to that. And then the second thing that I talk about, which nobody ever talks about, is maintenance. Right? So we can build our network and I can get a stack of business cards. That's wonderful. But how are you maintaining that network? Because ultimately you can get a stack of business cards this big, and 10 years from now, you could probably only pull 1 card out of there and somebody would answer your phone call. So how are you maintaining that network? Okay. So with that, Ruben's there it is. And then there you go. You know what you're doing. Okay. So if you fall asleep in class and you didn't hear anything that I said, there's a nice little book that basically summarizes the whole thing. It's got some cool little exercises at the end of each chapter that kind of help you understand how to work and build your own network and start to think about it and work through it. And I said book and I say chapters, but the whole book is 17 pages, and that includes the title page and a few other things. So it's probably only like 13 pages. Each chapter is probably 2 pages in length. And look at this. I bet you that might even be 14 font, and there's not many words on a page. Okay, so I designed this for the today student that doesn't read, right? Oh my God, horrible. So, all right, so now let's get into this. One thing you'll find out with people in general and how people work together is trust is the number one thing. Right? So it doesn't matter whether I'm sitting side by side with somebody or they're across the country or across the globe. If there's not a trusted relationship, we're not going to work together. We're not going to really communicate, and we're not going to get anything done. So trust is the number one thing that gets people to do anything with each other. So now, if you think of that, now let's think of trust as a currency. Let's think of trust as something that I'm going to give and I'm going to get. We're going to exchange as you would any currency. So if we start to think of trust as a currency and an exchange medium, right, that we give back and forth, we start to think about relationships different. We start to think about networks different, and we start to think about who I network with a little differently. Okay, let's see, Ruben, here we go. Bingo. So I'm going to talk to you about different capitals within that currency, right? So the first capital I'm going to talk, this is a trust capital. The first trust capital I'm going to mention is competence. So why do you trust somebody? They're competent. They know something. I mean, some of you walked into this room today and you trusted me because you believe, because I'm a professor and I'm at a university and someone allowed me to have a mic at a front stage here, that I actually know something. And so in some ways, there was a level of trust between you and me simply because you thought I knew something, because I was competent. That was a perception, obviously. I could talk and you could realize that over time, as I begin to talk, I really don't know anything. And then what happens? You probably trust me less. You trust what I'm going to say less. You think what I have to say, he doesn't really know what he's talking about, right? So likewise, when we think about competence, we exchange that, right? So think about the exchange of competence. You trust me because I know something. I'm going to trust you because you know something. And so the more we are competent in what we are doing, the more we can build trust in a relationship. Think about all the times when you've been with somebody and you realize they're an idiot. And somebody you were kind of like friends with going like, they're an idiot. And you just sort of start to walk away and you fade away from that relationship because you realize they're no help to you. Or they just, they just don't know what they're doing and they're going to get you in trouble somehow, right? They're going to lead you in the wrong direction. Think about competence in a manager at work, right? Think about that. Think about if my manager doesn't seem like they're competent. How much do I trust what they say to me? How much am I going to trust following what they do? Okay, so first currency is competence capital. Second one, sincerity. How sincere are you about what you say? Do you mean what you say? Do you back up what you say? Or do you just go around spouting things? So we have to be sincere about what we do and what we say, right? The whole phrase, actions speak louder than words, right? I always tell my kids the best form of apology is action. Change is the best form of apology. I don't care if you say you're sorry. I really don't. That's a nice thing to do. That's what we do in the South. We're polite. We say we're sorry. But if you're not going to change and you're not going to do anything different, then I don't believe you're sorry. So you have to be sincere about what you do in your actions and in your words, but more so in your actions. So we exchange sincerity. How sincere are we about what we do with each other? How much do I care about you? How much is it when you say something to me or you ask something to me, I show my heart to you? Next one, reliability. Do you show up? Do you arrive to class late? It's okay. So do I show up when I'm supposed to? Right? It's a big deal. This idea of the meeting's at 8, I'll get there at 8 is crap. Stop it, please. If the meeting's at 8, you show up at 7:50. We have a rule in my house. You always build in a 10% factor, 10 to 20% factor in your time of commuting somewhere. Right? So if it's 45 minutes to get there, I'm going to add 10 or 15 minutes to my commute. Right? So if it's 45 minutes to get there, I don't care what Apple Maps or Google Maps or anything says, I'm leaving an hour in advance. Why? Because there's plenty of idiots on the road. And so when you left, it said 45, all of a sudden there's an accident. Right? All of a sudden something happens. You blow a tire. Anything can happen between A and B in 45 minutes. So I always build in a buffer space, right? Same thing happens going to a meeting. Same thing happens coming to class. Same thing happens going out on a date. Right? You go out on a date, it's kind of good to show up early. Don't be like you think, I don't want to be an overachiever. No, be an overachiever. Okay? It's okay. Right? It's okay to be extra, right? So be reliable with what you're going to do. When you say you're going to do something, do it. Deliver. But then likewise, don't overcommit and underdeliver, right? Because then what happens there? Is that reliable? Questions reliability. Sometimes we question sincerity, right? Because I think, are they really telling me the truth or just lying to me? Right? So we can start to see correlations between the capitals, right? They're going to relate to each other. They're not independent variables. And the last one is care. Do you care? Okay, people like it when you care about what they're doing. You care about them, you care about what they're doing. So people understand when you're talking to them whether you look like you care. Are you paying attention to them? Are you making eye contact? Are you on your phone the whole time? right? Do you care? Show that. Show that in your words. Show that in the actions that you do. So these are our capitals, right? So these are the things that we exchange with others to build trust. We might exchange just one of them, or we might exchange all four at one time. They're interchangeable, or not interchangeable, they're interlocked, right? But depending on the situation, depends on which capital we're switching with or exchanging. And so you've got to know that. You got to know what capital you're giving up, and you got to know what capital you're trying to acquire. Right? Likewise, you got to know sometimes you got to spend $2 to get $1. Right? I mean, everything in life isn't an even exchange. I was at WinStar the other day. WinStar didn't care about how much money I spent. They took it all. Right? That wasn't an even exchange. But what I do when I go to WinStar is I go with a certain amount of money, and I know if I lose all this money and I'm there a certain amount of time, I had fun. Right? So that's the way I look at it. Because for me, with a family of 4, I go to Starbucks, and it probably costs me as much as it does to go to WinStar. Right? And at WinStar, I have a lot more fun than watching my children suck down some $6 drink in 2 seconds. Right? So here's the great one. This is new stuff. This is fresh off the press for you, because I talk about this every semester, this networking stuff. But I started to think about this because what this means to generations. And the reason why I started thinking about this is because I'll be honest, I'm pretty out open. I am 55 years old. I'll be 56 in November. Okay. And so I am old enough to be some of your parent. I'm maybe older than some of your parents, but let me tell you this. I'm the youngest in my family of 6. My sister is 72. My dad is 95. My mom passed away at 93. My parents had me when they were 40. So my parents are the product of the, it says they're actually the silent generation, but they grew up, essentially were born in the Depression. And so because they were born in the Depression, in that era, if you wanted something done, you did it yourself. Which is why I know how to change the oil in my car. I can change the brakes on my car. And likewise, I can pull out my sewing machine and I can make you an outfit. Okay? And those are honest truth answers. I can do all those things. Because when I grew up, if you needed it done, you just did it. And you didn't go on YouTube and watch a video. You didn't go and look it up somewhere. No, you just did it. You figured it out, right? Your best source was probably maybe the library, because maybe somebody wrote a book in the last 20 years that related to it. But ultimately, you just did everything yourself. And that's how I grew up. I grew up with parents that grew up in the silent generation, which means you don't speak unless you're spoken to if you walk into a room and people are older than you. You just sit there. So for me, this life and my children, which are probably they're like 1920s, year old, I had difficulty. Because now, apparently, every kid thinks they have a voice. Every kid thinks not only do they have a voice, that it's supposedly heard, and not only is it heard, it should be considered. Right? I grew up in a house where you didn't have a voice, and if you said anything, you got in trouble for talking, even if it was right. And nobody cared whether you liked it purple or not. If mom wants it blue or dad wants it red, it's going to be blue or red, no matter if purple's the right choice. Because kids don't get to decide. So I started thinking about this, and I thought about this, how I actually was exposed to multiple generations and what that means for how we deal with trust and how we deal with relationships and how we deal with trust as a currency. So if we look at this, right, we talk about the first one, the Great Depression, greatest generation, war, depression. If you don't know anything about the Great Depression, go read about it. I can't even imagine living life then, right? Then we talk about World War II, post-war, the Depression children. That was my parents' generation. Baby boomers, post-war prosperity, civil rights, Vietnam War, Watergate. Think about the baby boomers. They lived in a generation where before this, everybody trusted the government. The government was like the parent. You followed them. You did everything that they said because they were going to lead you to the right direction. And then the baby boomer generation comes around, and we've got the Vietnam War, and then all of a sudden, everybody that believed in the government was like, the government's lying to us. Wait, the government's not telling us the truth. And so our culture shifted into what trust looked like because we trusted the government immensely to no end, and now we started to question the government, right? So that put a spin on what we looked on as trust and how we trusted authority, right? So then we go into Gen X's, divorce rates, latchkey kids. So this is an interesting one because this is a generation that came home to nobody, right? They got out of school, they found their own way home. Nobody picked them up. There wasn't one parent that picked them up. No parents had flex schedules where they worked at home or worked, a few days a week at home, or I got off early so I could finish my day home and I could pick up the kids. No, you figured out how to get home. You rode the bus, you grabbed a ride with a friend, you rode your bike, you walked into a house and nobody was there. And what I've learned recently, this is a pretty interesting thing, is so these Gen Xers, right? I was one of them, right? I was one of these kids that came home to nothing. Likewise, this was the first generation where there was a high likelihood that both parents worked, right? Generations before that, it was seen as women didn't work, women raised the family, men worked. That was the norm. This is the first generation where the norm became both parents worked, right? And so what's interesting, and I learned this just the other day, the Gen Xers felt like they had a hard life because they didn't have parents around. And so they had to kind of do everything themselves. And their parents weren't carting them everywhere, and they weren't doing all this stuff with them. So what happened, this is interesting, the Gen Xers became parents. And so when they became parents, they decided that they needed to be there for their kids. So they were there for their kids for everything. And then you got the phrase helicopter parent. So now the Gen Xers believe they've got to solve all their kids' problems. They've got to help them out when they need help. They didn't actually let them go figure it out. They solved all their problems for them. And now we got kids that aren't capable of doing things. They can't sew and change the oil in the car, right? And so we can't blame, the whole everybody gets a trophy thing. Yeah, that's another concept. But likewise, just like I told you my story, think about how one generation raises the next generation, right? So think about what that means. And so we can go through this, and I'll skip ahead, and we start to think about now these generations and what does trust mean by generation. So our great and silent generation, the earlier ones, right? I trust those who have proven themselves through duty, stability, and character. These are generations that believed in duty, honor, country, right? Loyalty. That's what they believed in. And so for them, that's how trust is formed. That's how you get trust. They're going to give you trust in that way. And they expect that back. So when you're a different generation and you've seen trust differently and you're not giving them the trust that they're seeing, they don't believe it's trusted. If you want a book to read, I'm not going to get off on this. There's a book called The 5 Love Languages. You should read it. If you're ever going to be in any kind of relationship with another person or even some other biological entity, whatever that might be, maybe you like amoebas or something like that, and you want to get in a relationship with an amoeba, you do that. But either way, there's 5 love languages, and you should know what they are because everybody speaks one and usually has a secondary one that they kind of hide. But the point is, if you speak what your love language is, you speak it. If someone doesn't speak the same love language back to you, you don't understand that they love you. Right? It's no different than if I speak English and you speak Spanish. If you start speaking Spanish, I don't know what you're saying. Well, maybe I'll pick a different language. We'll pick Swahili. I don't know Swahili. So you speak Swahili, I don't know what you're saying. But it doesn't mean that you're not communicating. Right? So when we start looking at trust, it's the same way. So now you start thinking of trust in these generationals and how they speak those trust capitals, right? If we don't hear it, right, lost in translation, then we lose trust, right? Even though we're speaking and we think that you're hearing me, what you're saying. So boomers, I trust experience, credentials, results, and I know institutions can fail. Remember, this is the generation that lost faith in the government, right? The biggest, strongest institution in the world, the US government, they lost faith in it, right? The Gen Xers, I trust competence, consistency, but I verify, right? This is the generation that essentially walked into the empty home, right? They were questioning things because they had to figure it out themselves. The millennials, I trust transparency, purpose, inclusion, and leaders who communicate. Okay. This was a generation that started to get in information. They started to acquire information, right? So in other words, all these other generations, information was like I had to go to the library, I had to go to a book, whatever. Now we're starting to see the internet. We're starting to see the proliferation of information. So because I have more access to information, I'm expecting more transparency, right? I'm expecting to be able to know things. The Gen Zs trust authenticity, peer proof. Now peer proof. This is another one that's interesting because now anybody buy anything in the last 24 hours? Okay, anybody buy anything online? Of course you did. When you bought something online, did you just go buy it or did you go check some reviews? Did you go see who else has bought it? Did somebody else, or maybe you bought it because some TikToker bought it and you bought it on TikTok Shop or something like that. But ultimately, that's it. It's proof. We have access to more information, so we look for proof. And so this is the Gen Zs. That's the Gen Zs. It's some of you in this room, right? The Gen Alphas and Betas, this is the generation that's kind of going on right now. I heard this generation was called the anxiety generation the other day, which was very interesting. And it's happening. The level of anxiety cases is going up in youth, right? And that's another class why that's the case. Not this class. This is a business class. But we want to talk about that. So here you go. Now this is an eye chart. I got this. You'll have access to the slides, but I've got a chart here that shows you every generation and every capital and what it means. So you can take this, and this would be a nice little reference chart to have sitting at your desk when you're a manager or something, or you're not even a manager. You're going to go talk to your manager, and you find out your manager was born in 1932. Which could have, well, I'll pick a different, let's say 1945, something like that. So 32, they could be alive, but they may not be your manager. And you're like, I'm about to go talk to them, right? And I want to make sure that they trust me. How am I going to present it? So how you present something can change on who you're talking to. Not everybody's your bro, all right? Not everybody's your bro, depending on your generation. Not everybody's your dude, right? Not everything's rad, right? So you've got to figure out who you're talking to. And sometimes you got to change your language. You got to change your gestures. You got to change what you do. My dad said you act the way you dress. Well, maybe true, but it doesn't work too well when people are showing up in the Silicon Valley wearing T-shirts and cut up jeans and making six figures, right? So his model was you dress properly, you're going to make it in life. So that didn't work. That doesn't work so well now, does it? But to him, that's everything. There's faculty in this building you'll see walking around, and every day they're wearing a tie, right? Sure, I got a tie on today, but I got this job that some people think I should wear a tie for. So I do, right? I do it purely for perception reasons, not for it makes me feel good. I do it for how I want people to perceive me. If I had my way, I'd go wear a T-shirt and jeans to work. Okay. And that's what I would do. And I promise you, I'd be just as productive and I wouldn't change who I am. But ultimately, I want to create a perception. So you've got to think about that when you're going to work. What are you showing up doing? What are you wearing? How are you acting? What do you want from the people that you want it from, right? Because that's a part of the relationship. You're building that relationship and that trust. So if we look at this, the greatest generation emphasizes reliability and care and competence. The silent generation, reliability, competence, and sincerity. The boomers is competence, reliability, and sincerity. Generation X, reliability, competence, and sincerity. Millennials, sincerity, care, and reliability. And these are in priority order. And Gen Z, sincerity, care, verified competence, right? And then our alphas is safety-based care, verified sincerity, and digital competence. Remember, safety-based care and verified sincerity. This is the anxiety generation, right? So these are the ones that are going to get freaked out by things. I mean, some of you in here might relate to that, right? I got one of those. Well, she's not at home right now. She's in college, but I got one of those in my family. Incredible anxiety. It's amazing. I feel like and I'm just sort of like, I came from a couple generations. I came from the generation that came home to nothing. There's no such thing as anxiety. Like shut up, let's go. And so that's my attitude, right? So when you got a kid that's anxious and you're like, shut up, let's go, it doesn't click too well, right? And you know what that does for my relationship with her? It's not a trusted relationship, right? Because we're speaking two different trust languages, essentially, right? All right. Leading with capital, we're going to skip this one. All right. So now, what time is this thing over? 5:30. Okay. I don't know these new times on the classes, so you probably don't either. But apparently this class is over at 5:30. So now I'm going to talk to you about trust maintenance. And this is probably more important. Well, maybe it's equally as important as what I just told you about trust capitals and exchange. But you can do all these things, but if you don't maintain your networks, they're worthless. Okay. And I say maintain them. It's a lifelong maintenance process, right? It's like buying a car and saying, I'm going to drive this thing for 1,000,000 miles. And what am I going to do along the way to make sure I'm still driving it at 1,000,000 miles and it's not breaking down on me on the side of the road? Okay. Now, keeping in mind that car might change a little bit. You're going to get new tires. Maybe you make some modifications to it over time because you have to. You get new parts. So it's not the same car as you bought, but you want it to be still the same. You still want to be driving a car, right? So the first one is what I call reaching out. So if you're going to maintain your network, reach out. Don't think I'm going to go collect a bunch of business cards or go talk to people and then I'm done. Oh, guess who's in my phone? I love that one, right? Oh, I got their number right here. I feel like saying, you got their number right there? Show me the last time you text them. Show me the last time you called them. Big deal. You got their number, right? Big deal, right? So I'm connected. I'm going to name drop, and this is no way a name drop. For some of you, you're going to know what I'm talking about. For some of you, you have no idea what I'm talking about. So I'm connected on LinkedIn with Katie Farmer, right? Katie Farmer is the head of BNSF Railway. She's very well known, travels all over the place speaking. I don't have Katie Farmer's phone number. I've messaged Katie Farmer on LinkedIn, and she has not responded. Okay. Am I connected with her on LinkedIn? You know why? Because probably some assistant that runs her LinkedIn account said, oh, there's a professor at a supply chain program in Texas, and she likes Texas. Oh, I'll just accept this. Okay. So if I go around saying, oh, I'm connected with Katie Farmer on LinkedIn, my next question would be, when's the last time you talked to her? Never. Right? When's the last time you were in the same room with her? Probably about 12 years ago when she actually spoke at UNT at this exact event when she was just a director at BNSF. Okay. So now she's not talking to me, right? I invited her to something last week and she was in town, but she still didn't come. Okay. There's no, me and Katie Farmer don't go back. Right. So, but if it is somebody that I have a relationship with, that I've met and I've communicated, I want to keep that. So I'm going to reach out. Cheer on your connections. Send them a note every once in a while. Like their things on LinkedIn. You can like them on Facebook and Instagram and all the other social medias too, but since we're business oriented, I'm not going to promote those. But you can do that. You can snap them, right? You can, whatever, something on TikTok. I don't care, whatever you want to do. But just show that you're still there and show that you still know that they're still there, right? Next one is check-in. And this is different than just this is different than the previous one because the previous one is just saying like, hey, I'm going to reach out. I want to know you're there. Checking in means I'm actually going to call you and we're going to have a conversation. I'm checking in. How you doing? How's life treating you? Likewise, and this is with closer contacts like mentors. If there's somebody that played an important role in your life, keep in touch. So I have a mentor of mine gosh, I can tell you this. I have a list of mentors, right? I have a list of people. It's a short list. It should be short, of people that have played a prominent role in my life throughout my career. And then if they played a prominent role in my career, they played a prominent role in my personal life too. Because if they impacted my career, they've impacted my personal life. And I keep in contact with those people. I reach out to them regularly. One of them We hadn't talked in a little while, and we were both kind of going through something. And we set up every Monday morning. He was in the UK now, but every Monday morning at 8 o'clock, we met and we called it a reunion. And we did that for like 3 months, I think it was. Every Monday morning, we would get on WhatsApp video and we just talk for about anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. And we'd go about our day. And we did that for 3 months until we both kind of said, we're good. We're good. Everything's good now. Like we're both in a place that we kind of need. And we talked about everything from personal to professional, whatever it was, but he was a mentor of mine and we just needed to touch base, right? I needed it from him and he needed it from me, right? And so we did that. I'll no problem doing that with people that matter in my life, in my past. I check in. Okay. I never lose those relationships because you never know how they might help you in some way. Because if they were a mentor once, they'll probably always be a mentor. The next one is connect. Engage in things. Go to networking events. Socialize with people. Don't be afraid to walk up to somebody and say hello. Here's the one thing I learned about people and networking. I don't care what your title is. I don't care where you work. I don't care what position you have. You're a human just like me. You have feelings just like me. You hurt just like me, right? You want to be successful just like me. Maybe you're older than me and that's why you are where you are. I have no idea, but you're human. So don't be afraid to walk up to anybody and just say hello. If they don't give you the time of day, so what? Keep walking. But you'll never know whether they will give you the time of day if you don't ask. Last fall, no, wait, we're in this fall, last spring in this class, a student in this class, we had a VP, no, a president for a company in here. And this student was a sophomore. And just after class, he got the gumption. He walked up to this president and just said hello. They had a conversation and I overheard the conversation. By the end of the conversation, they were exchanging cell phone numbers and this guy was lining them up for an internship. Just because he had the guts to come up and say something, right? I was actually shocked about the exchanging of cell phone numbers because I don't know what happened in the conversation, but it must have been a trusted conversation, right? There was trust exchanged. Think about that. They exchanged some currencies of trust to the point that they exchanged cell phone numbers. I mean, if you just randomly walked up to a president of a company and said, hey, can you give me your cell phone number? I'll give you mine. Are they going to do it? No. No, they're not going to do it. Come on. They're not going to. Would you do it with somebody? Exactly. So it wouldn't even have to be the president, but you wouldn't do it because why? You don't trust them, right? What are you going to do with my number? You know what? I'm not trusting you. I don't care who you are. I don't trust you. So in that conversation, they exchanged trust currencies, whatever they were, and they built a trusted relationship and they exchanged phone numbers. That's pretty cool, right? And that happened in about 5 to 10 minutes. So get out in small groups, network with people, join clubs. The young lady that was here, I don't even know what she said. I wasn't listening, but she said something about joining some organizations on campus, right? Get involved, right? Get out of your comfort zones. The next one, gratitude. My gosh, care about people, right? Show some gratitude. Don't be a selfish, gosh, I can't think of a word that I can use in class. Just don't be selfish, right? Get out there and love on some people. I'm telling you, one thing I've learned, and I'll tell you, everybody, like, if you call me old, my kids call me old, so I just classify myself as old, right? But when you get old, you start to learn that service-based leadership is leadership, right? Be a servant leader. And you can be a servant leader, I don't care what age you are. But when you get old, you realize being a servant leader is actually is a cool thing because you realize you want to give back. But you can do that at any age. And I promise you, work on your servant leadership, right? Work on your servant leadership. Show gratitude, show that you care about people, where they're going. I always say, give so you can get. I always say, listen so you can be heard. The more you listen, the more people will listen to you. Right. Next one, share. I learned this from MATLAB. You'll know what MATLAB. I know Chris will know what MATLAB is. Some of y'all are going like, what's MATLAB? So way back in the day, one of the biggest sort of modeling programs that a lot of engineering schools used was MATLAB. And then you could use Simulink, you could do modeling simulation. Big story. The one thing MATLAB did, something that was revolutionary at the time, and other programs that were out there believed that you became successful, other software designers, because you became successful by writing code and then copywriting and trademarking and patenting everything and basically hoarding your intellectual property so nobody could take it. And then if they did try to take it, then you sued the heck out of them, right? So these companies would have these massive legal offices of patent attorneys because all they did was protect and then attack, right? And that's how companies believed that you did it. MATLAB came along and said, you know what? That's a huge part of my operating expense and my overhead is maintaining basically a legal office of patent attorneys because they're expensive. How about if we just don't patent anything? We don't trademark anything. And what we do is we just stay so far ahead of the curve that everybody's trying to catch up with us. And we'll just make a lot of money because we're always in the front. And so that's what MATLAB did. And so you could go and you could, while you might buy the basic MATLAB, you could go online and find people that wrote code and you could borrow code and exchange code and you could find modules, all this kind of stuff. And so their model was, I'm just going to stay ahead of the curve and let everybody else try and catch up. And it probably took 20, 30 years for everybody to finally catch up, and MATLAB isn't MATLAB anymore, but they did a pretty good job. I can tell you they were at every university in the country and everybody was using MATLAB. So my point of that is don't be afraid to share what you know. Don't be afraid to give in order to get. But I always say don't be afraid to share, but know what you're sharing. Okay, don't just freely give. Don't just walk around with your share the wealth cards, throwing them around, right? But know what you're giving away, but don't be afraid to give something to somebody. Help them out. Because you'd be surprised, somebody you help out today will turn around and help you out tomorrow. Okay? And so don't be afraid to share your talents. Don't be afraid to share your knowledge. And like it says here, be a servant leader. I know we're talking about maintenance, but maintain. What that means is all these things that I'm talking about, you don't just do them once. These are constant things that you got to be doing. You constantly got to be checking your connections. Who got promoted? Who's got a major life change? Right? Find this out. The great thing about social media is you can find that stuff out. Here's the other thing that I routinely do is if I know it's somebody's birthday and I have their cell phone number, I will not post on their Facebook page, happy birthday. Everybody loves to do that. Oh, posting their Facebook page, happy birthday. You know, it even tells you when their birthday is. And then even now, you know, you can click a button, it'll say happy birthday for you. You don't have to do anything. I don't do it. And that's the reason why I don't. Because if I have your cell phone number, I'm sending you a text. I'm going to personally tell you happy birthday. Not some AI engine did it. And so, so I do that for everybody I have their cell phone for. If I know their birthday and their cell phone number at the same time, I try to at least. Chris is like, you never told me happy birthday. I know. He's like, so, but you know, pay attention to what's happening to people. Encourage them. You know, give them, like I said, give a little love. It's okay. This is a tough one. Give people space. Don't be in their back pocket all the time. Don't be annoying. Right? Give people space. You know, the whole thing, you know, you set the dove free. If it loves you, it comes back, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right? But, you know, you got to give people a little space. My wife, I bet you 100% my wife loves the fact that I go to work. Right? When I first took this job that I'm in now, I was going to work every day, right? Because I have an administrative responsibility. And I remember when I first started doing that, my wife was like, "Oh, you know, you're not going to be around as much, you know, because you're in the actual office, you know, you're not just working from home and da da da." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And she goes, "Oh, you know, it's going to be sad, whatever." I think after a week, I got up one day and she goes, "Aren't you going to work? Don't you need to go to work? It's time to go to work." You know, so you know, she learned really quickly that she needed some space, right? So, and that's okay. It didn't hurt my feelings because I can be too much to some people. Okay. So, but give people space. Don't feel like you always got to be there texting them. You always got to be encouraging them, right? Just give them a little space. And then sometimes you can reach out to somebody, they don't respond. Don't get offended. It made nothing to do with you. They're just busy too. Okay. Everybody's busy. So don't tell me you're any more busy than anybody else. We're all busy. There's two things you can't say. You can't say that you're busy and you can't say that you're a hard worker. Okay. Because everybody's busy and everybody works hard. Yeah, I know some work harder than others, and I know some are busier than others, but nobody's going to say, well, I'm actually not the hardest worker in the room, and I'm actually not the busiest person here. I'm pretty lazy, and I actually, I really don't do anything. Nobody says that, right? And nobody goes into a job interview and says, I know you want to hire me, but I'm lazy. I don't work very hard. I'll show up late. I take long lunches. Nobody says that. You go, so that's why I say that's another class, but I always say never go into a job interview and say you're a hard worker. Never, 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 never. Because everybody's a hard worker. So that doesn't differentiate you, right? So don't be afraid to give people space because they'll get back to you. They know you reached out to them. You don't have to turn on your read receipts to know you're loved. Okay? It's true though, right? People gotta, oh, how many people liked my Facebook post? Or how many people viewed my story? If that's how you're measuring love, you need to find an amoeba. All right. Here's the one lesson I'm going to give you for life. As we wrap this up, as soon as you realize you're just like your parents, life gets a lot easier, right? And usually that happens about 25. Uh, and oddly enough, it's starting to push out a little bit more and more, but it's roughly around 25. Um, that's my mom. She passed away about almost 2 years ago. But she was the one that taught me how to sew, right? And I think that's because she had 6 kids. Her oldest was a girl, and then she had 5 boys. And I think I was her last hope at another girl. So she taught me how to sew, right? Um, and this is my dad. And I always show these two pictures because my mom loved the ocean. And so this is a special picture to me because I'm with the ocean with my mom. This is a special picture with my dad. My dad was a very much a conservative, this kind of person. And so to have me actually coming over my dad's shoulders and kind of being a little goofy with my dad was a special moment because I could never have done that. So it was kind of like a breakthrough moment, even though my dad was turning 80 and I was turning 40. My dad thought that was kind of cool that we were like half each other's age, or kind of was half his age. He thought that was a cool moment because it's only going to happen once and blah, blah, blah. My dad's kind of quirky that way. He was born October 20th, 1930. So he loves to go to the doctor. And when they ask him his birthday, he loves to say 10, 20, 30. He thinks that's the coolest thing ever. I mean, he's 95. Get it. I mean, get it, Dad. I mean, just go. So, um, but my point is that, and I tell another story sometimes, but I'm not doing it today here, is that my dad is the one that helped me make my first network connection in the professional world that essentially led me to every connection I ever had after that. And I could tell you this is the reason I stand here right now. So I attribute everything in my professional career, my success, I contribute to my dad because he made that first connection for me that got me going somewhere, right? And so that's why I always say this is that one. And the next one is uh, connect with me on LinkedIn. I don't care if you're a UNT student. If there's anything UNT in your LinkedIn profile, I will accept your connection. I don't care how uh, kind of weird you are. I don't care what you've done if you're UNT. And I say that because I'm a believer in sort of institutional trust, right? And what I mean by that is I went to this other university, it's somewhere else in Texas, and everything was about institutional trust and loyalty, right? And so I bring that to wherever I go. And so I believe that if you're a UNT student, I'll help you, right? I will help a UNT student no matter what. Um, so because I want you all to be successful. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can figure out what I do. Um, I'm slowly losing faith in LinkedIn because it's turning into Facebook, in my opinion. It's getting very social, which irritates me immensely. I don't care that your kid did well in basketball. I really don't. I don't care. I don't care how you correlate that your kid did well in basketball to your professional career and how it's advanced you. I really don't care. Leave your kid and their basketball career out of my career. So you can connect. I'll connect with you. Next week, we start with Patrick Arnzen, who's the president of Thrust Flight. Pretty cool guy. He is absolutely a pilot. He'll probably walk in here with his sunglasses on and everything. But if that's it, we will see y'all next week.